All right, I'd like to call this meeting to order. This is the Community Relations Subcommittee of the Greenfield City Council. It is Monday, September 18th, 2023. It is 6:04 p.m. We are meeting in the Johnson Community Center, and it's a hybrid Zoom. This meeting is being recorded by the Community Relations Committee. If any other persons present are doing the same, you must notify the chairperson at this time. In accordance with MGL Chapter 30A, Section 20G, no person shall address a meeting of a public body without permission of the chair, and all persons shall, at the request of the chair, be silent. No person shall disrupt the proceedings of a meeting of a public body if, after clear warning from the chair, the person continues to disrupt the proceedings. The chair may order the person to withdraw from the meeting, and if the person does not withdraw, the chair may authorize a constable or other officer to remove the person from the meeting. We'll have a roll call. Councilor Lapiensky.
Present.
Councilor Ricketts.
Present.
Councilor Toronzo.
Here.
And I am Councilor Forgy. Is Councilor Mayo with us? Okay. We do have a quorum. There's 4 of us this evening. The first thing we need to do is approve the minutes of August 21st, 2023.
So moved.
Oh,
Second, Ricketts.
okay.
I would have given you first.
Okay.
Okay, any discussion on the minutes?
No.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, we're good to go. Before we begin this meeting, I do want to read just a brief note. There was something that went out in the press release, and I hope everybody had an opportunity to read it. So I would like to say that, as stated, this is a meeting of the Community Relations Committee. Your precinct counselor may be sitting in the audience and not at the committee table. This allows us to be in compliance with open meeting law for quorum purposes. Tonight, you will be talking to the members at this table. However, your counselor will hear you, and you can communicate with them directly outside of the meeting. We are the council, the legislative body of the city, and are providing this venue tonight so you can express your concerns that are facing your precinct. All councilor members attending will hear your comments. We may not be able to solve your concerns tonight or be able to make promises to alleviate any difficulties, but we may be able to put you in contact with the department or the person that will be best able to help you. You will be given 3 minutes to comment on issues facing you or your neighborhood. Please refrain from speaking about the election or any candidates for election, as this would be a violation of election law. We request all who attend to be polite and not admonish anybody when making comments, including those in attendance and other municipal officials. There's a sign-in sheet right here in front of us. If anybody would like to address us, please feel free. Put your name on the list. Come forward at this point. We're anxious to hear any concerns that you have.
I would add, we're anxious to hear any good things you have to say as well. We have someone raise their hand.
Please come on up. Sure.
You want to come up?
Yeah. It's for 1, 2, and 3. Yes, that's correct. Anybody here who wants to speak? 1, 2, and 3? Anybody on Zoom? Okay.
Here, I got it.
We've already got those people in.
Uh-oh.
Okay. No, that's not it.
There's someone's in the chat, which might mean they want to speak.
Yeah, his hand's up. Just look up.
Yeah. My fingers are dead. Here, you have it.
Oh, I see.
Okay.
Glenn Ayers wants to go.
Okay. Go ahead. He's supposed to.
His hand's up. He's right there in front of you.
Okay.
Colin.
Okay, would you please state your name and address for the record, please?
Glenn, I think that's you.
Oh, thank you. I didn't realize you were asking me. Yeah, my name is Glenn Ayers. I'm sorry I couldn't change the title on the screen for some reason, but I live at 254 Davis Street. I'm in precinct 3, and my comment tonight has to do with what I've often talked about at city council meetings in the past, and specifically about the contamination at Lunt, and the fact that I know that is in precinct 4, but the contamination is coming into precinct 3. It is moving to the southwest, and the line goes right down Davis Street between the precincts. And so the contamination is leaving the site, going through the storm drain system, and coming down Davis Street, and then actually right behind my house, it turns in by Emily Lane and follows the storm drain sewer lines go right behind my house. And most of my neighbors in this neighborhood have sump pumps and a high water table that goes into their cellars or basements. And yet I don't know of any testing that has been done in this area, because my belief is that the storm drains and the sewers leak like a sieve. That's why when it rains, the infiltration is such a problem at the wastewater treatment plant. The same thing happens with the storm drain system. When the pipes are full, the water leaks out all along the route. And it's about 1.5 miles from Lunt out to the Green River. And that gives those pipes about 1.5 miles to leak into all the neighborhoods along those storm drains. So my real concern is that we need to have a plan to investigate that sewer storm drain system, those pipes, and at least figure out if the houses along that route are being contaminated by the TCE and other chemicals leaching, being discharged through the storm drain throughout the rest of Greenfield on the way to the Green River. And so far, we just have not dealt with that issue at all. And I really hope that we can, as a city council, take some kind of action to ensure that we as a community are addressing the ongoing contamination and not just ignoring it, because I think there are a lot of houses all along that route. And the people living along that route deserve to know if their cellars and basements are being filled with volatile, carcinogenic chemical vapors. Now that's my main concern. I'm sorry if I sound like a broken record, but I will continue to raise this issue until I really feel that the city is working and doing everything that it can to address this problem. So thank you very much. I'm sorry if I went over my 3 minutes, but I really appreciate this forum, and I really appreciate, honestly, all of your support and interest in this issue that you have shown in the past. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Glenn. I didn't set my timer, but I think that felt just about the right amount of time.
Thank you.
Is there anybody else? Would you please come forward? Hi, Mike. Would you sign in to our sheet, please? Okay. Did you get,
Michael Masters Tataro, 37 Cypress Street, Greenfield. We have an issue with broken sidewalks and 0 sidewalks in precinct 3. There was a portion on Wells Street that got new sidewalks, but we have, most streets have a sidewalk at least on one side of the street, which is fine, makes sense. But we actually have streets that have no sidewalks at all. And a particular street is Place Terrace, where there's a school on the corner of Place Terrace and Conway Street. Kids walk to school. Parents walk to pick their kids up. In the winter, they have to walk through snow because there's no sidewalks. The other issue with that particular street is, I believe, and I live the next block over. I live on Cypress Street, but there are neighbors of mine that live on Place Terrace, and we all believe that that should become a one-way street, because come pickup time and drop-off time, traffic comes, but people want to pull up in front of the school, so they drive west down Place Terrace. Well, there are also people that cut through during those times that drive east, and it creates a real cluster. And I think it will also help with cars that are going above the speed limit if that becomes a one-way street. But the main issue is there are absolutely no sidewalks there, and there's portions of no sidewalk on Wells Street. There's portions, there are no sidewalks at all. I think it's on Spruce. But I will bring that up with the next precinct counselor.
are you,
So,
are you,
yeah.
okay, I was going to say, that's a great idea.
Thank you very much.
And are you finished with your remarks?
Yeah.
Okay,
Okay.
thank you
For
so
now.
much.
For now.
Okay,
It gets better. Okay, thanks.
thank you, Mike. Anybody else wish to address us this evening? Okay. So I just would like to make a comment. I'll open it up for other counselors as well. When I got the list, you'll see on the agenda, there's a number of items on this list that I'll just read it quickly so people know what I'm looking at. The topics and concerns that were submitted by the precinct counselors 1, 2, and 3, schools, property assessments with taxes, GCT, GSIT, downtown revitalization, infrastructure, lack of retail establishments, homelessness, business adjacent to residential districts, including concerns with lighting, noise, and environmental issues, sidewalk disrepair and snow cleaning, traffic and speeding, and housing. A number of these issues, in my opinion, are really more, they sort of fall more to the enforcement side of government than they do actually to be larger topics of concern. Still important to all the precincts that are here represented tonight. But I think that enforcement pieces would be something that that was talked about this evening. We may be able to move a couple of those things forward to the mayor and to the department heads in that regard. But the bigger issues, I'm glad to hear if anybody comes forward with any of those, but they are, for instance, homelessness. That's huge. That's a huge issue. Infrastructure, property taxes, always a popular one, and our schools. So I do appreciate the counselors that represent these three precincts reaching out and letting us know what concerns their citizens. And with that, I will open it up to other counselors that would like to share remarks. Anybody?
You want to go? Okay, I guess I'll speak. Yeah, thank you for that list. And I think education is a really great piece because I see GSETs on there and I see the speeding is on there. Those two alone have places it can be directed to. You can get in touch with GSET directly and speak with them. And as far as speeding, the police department, we only have that speed wagon, but I know we just recently received an email and, I had them reach out to the police department and they will put it there for a certain amount of time. They do move it around. And with the sidewalks, that's a really good one to really check in with Director Warner and just see if it's in his 1 year, 2 year or 5 year plan, and I think the more people that have, an issue about specific streets, then maybe it'll help move it more up the list, for DPW, because it is a big concern. So I don't mind when things come to council. I just fear that there's times people don't understand where they can go with some of these issues first. Okay.
Go ahead.
Oops, my microphone's already on. Sorry about that. So I guess I think I disagree with the premise that both that you don't mind when people bring things to council, because it seems like you do. And I also think that these are things that ought to be brought to council. And specifically, I would say that a lot of these things come to council after people have reached out in the correct way and not gotten either a response in some cases, or in other cases, just not the response they wanted. So I think it's perfectly legitimate. My only problem is I have a list of topics, but I don't know who's interested in the topics. Those people are certainly not here. And so I'm not sure what to do about it. If we could go just down the list and talk about all of these things as a committee, but what's that going to do? Specifically with regard to sidewalks, I would be happy to spend more money on sidewalks, either in next year's budget or in a supplemental bill, which we have the mayor and the finance director here, and they could bring something forward, or that could be initiated through the council. There's a way to do that. But since we don't have anyone in front of us who's saying that they're requesting that, with the exception of one person, it's hard. And with that request, the request, when there is a broken sidewalk, it's easy to get that into a cycle, like you were saying, Councilor Ricketts. But when there's no sidewalks at all, then you're talking about not just a bigger expense, but there's a whole logistical thing that goes into it, and we may have to get grants. And so looking at this piece of paper here, I don't feel like there's anything I can do with it. So I don't know, maybe the chair has some idea of what we can do with this list, but I don't.
Mike, you all set?
I guess I'd just say, I think this is probably a little bit more rough, as it being the first one of this type for a long time. As word gets out, more people might show up, or they might just have different precincts, might have different problems. And so I think I think the list was established right from the counselors in these precincts that were up. Now, this is from what they've gotten emails about and their constituents have talked to them about. And as you stated earlier, Councilor Forgy, that having this be a place where people can come to maybe just find the answer of who to talk to, they might not know. And I was just having a conversation with somebody about housing and, navigating our social programs and things like that. And we have a lot of those out there, but having like a hub for that, if you have somebody who's almost like a dispatcher in our departments, not every department, but if you have somebody at City Hall who, if somebody came in and said, look, I'm looking for this information how do I get help? They would know where to tell somebody. And if you also had somebody maybe at the police station or the fire station, places where people might go to gravitate to find answers when they won't necessarily know, to contact a housing authority or to contact, like if it's like Life Path for, the elderly community. A lot of people don't know that. It's not really common knowledge out there. So I feel like if there's nothing else that this subcommittee can offer, it's almost to be kind of that little bit of a liaison to other communities, members of the community, to, like you said, steer them in the right direction or where they can ask. And then as far as sidewalks go, I think, repairing is obviously in a cycle in a way. I think there's also plans for when they add new areas, like what was done up in over by Vernon Street, Chapman Street, that area. And that took a lot of public input too, because there were a couple of streets there that didn't want it. Like they kind of said, no, we don't want that. It does create, as much as it creates walkability, and I appreciate that, and I agree with that as well, accessibility. For some people, they see it as more of a burden because now they're taxed with clearing that. Even though it's not theirs, it's part of the agreement essentially by owning property in any town or city. But yeah, I think the I don't know that a one-way street would work for that. I've seen the other schools around kind of have suggestions. They put signs up or cones up during drop off and pickup times that will say, only turn right. And they try to do it their own way. I don't know that locking down a street. I mean, that's just my opinion. Locking down a street as a one-way permanently, maybe the residents would be okay there. The ones who are there now, they might get annoyed by it at a certain point, or if there's construction. But yeah, I mean, I do know what you're talking about. There are a lot of streets around that could use sidewalks that don't, or they have a sidewalk that just ends. You're like, why did it stop here? Yeah. And I honestly, for North Parish, what's it called now? Early Learning Academy.
Yes.
I really hope that nobody's walking alone to school there. That's like a preschool. But yeah, if the parents are walking with them, you don't want to have to trudge through snow either. But I don't know.
Thank you. Councilor Lucas.
Yes, thank you. You brought up a good point. I do remember when there was a street over by the tennis courts got new, I think it's precinct 3, that got their new sidewalks. And the first thing that happened was a couple complaints because it took up a little bit of their property. And they were very upset. And they said, any new sidewalks that go in anywhere, all residents should be asked first, because not everybody wanted them. And I know for one of them, they had like this boat in their garage that stuck out some, and they couldn't even fit it anymore because now the sidewalk was there and they couldn't even use their own driveway any longer for something that they've owned for quite a while. So things do come up. And again, with the schools and maybe making it one way or whatever, I think this is a perfect topic for school committee as well. I think that would be really great to bring up during public comment during school committee, because there's usually so many parents on there, or even the staff might be like, exactly, this is so necessary. It's crazy for us as well, because I know the middle school had to go through that at one point and make sure things could only be a certain way because of all the traffic, and then the speed started picking up. So yeah, thanks for bringing that stuff forward. And it's good that there are different places it could go.
So I'd like to wrap this up basically and take an attempt at responding to the question that you asked, which was that we have this whole list, but how do we act on the list? So,
Just before you do that.
Oh, sure.
May I address something that Councilor Turnbull said?
yes, you may.
Just to note that it is feasible, and we have other places in Greenfield where signs can be put up that say it's one way during specific hours. And I would want a feasibility study as to whether or not that was more or less safe. But it's something that could be done, and that would mean that it wouldn't be a burden the rest of the time.
If I could, I agree. Actually, I was just sitting there thinking about it, and it's like, yeah, it could be done during that. If we have the signs put up, a lot of people don't abide by like the no left turns on Chapman Street and Davis Street all day long. But if it was worked out with the schools where the sign is already placed there, you know, during school hours, whatever you say, like September to June, no entering, you know, to go east, I think you said, right? To go from Conway Street down. And if the school was able to do something as simple as maybe put out cones that block that half of the street, that it would, if you were turning from Conway Street, like you would see those and hopefully not try to zip through the other side. But yeah, there's definitely, I think, a way to do that.
So basically, in wrapping things up this evening, there's a couple of comments that I'd like to share. A lot of the things that people are bringing forward, they have their roots in the executive side of government. The council can only do certain things. And yes, that is frustrating. What we did ask and what the counselors did do was go into their precincts and find out what the significant issues are that the people are thinking about in this, in their precincts in the council. And again, I sense, rather than, I don't want to put words into your mouth or anything else, but I sense that it's a little disappointing to come here and have just a few people participating with us this evening. And I hope that Councilor Toronzo is correct. Once the word gets out on this, we'll get hopefully a bigger attendance at these meetings, which are extremely important. And the reason that we're doing this is basically to give people another venue in which to talk to the council about the things that are concerning them. They're not all the same things across the board. They differ from precinct to precinct, but there's many items on here that are very common across the board for all of us. So I understand your frustration. We have done our best. We've made the attempt. And if there are no other comments this evening,
Any more participants?
any more, is there any more? Yeah, okay, we got, let's just see who we have here. We have Catherine. Oh, gosh.
Yeah, can you hear me?
We can hear you, but I can't. We can hear, hang on just a second. I'd like to see you, but I'm.
Do you have your camera on?
I do. Yeah, I can see me and I can see you.
Well, okay, I am going to say that we have to be careful of open meeting law and the number of counselors that are allowed to speak. We're down one, but that's the subcommittee. So I am going to err on the side of caution, which is open meeting law, and I'm going to say that your comments would have to be held because you are a member of the council.
That's fine.
Sorry, Catherine.
No worries. That's totally fine.
Okay. Anybody else? All right, I'll take a motion to adjourn.
Second, Ricketts. Second, Ricketts.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed or abstentions? The meeting ends at 6:32.